Why hello, didn't see you there. My name is RandomRandomMan, and I'm about to take you on a journey with this review that will consist of a deadpan style of talking, quirky and offbeat humor, colorful characters and set design, and music used throughout that will attempt to convey the themes and emotion I will elicit on you. Now, shall we begin? Nah, I'm just kidding. Imagine if I really did this review in the style of a Wes Anderson movie. I mean, that just wouldn't be amusing. Ha ha ha. Man, I should go hang my head in shame. I suck at these intros. What is up, everybody? RandomRandomMan here, bringing you my review for Isle of Dogs. Set in a dystopian near future in Japan, the plot basically follows a young boy named Atari, voiced by Koyu Rankin, who is in search of his dog Spots, voiced by Liev Schreiber, after the entire species is banished to an island after an illness outbreak. Going into this movie, I was super pumped to see it. It became one of my most anticipated movies of 2018 for 2 words: Wes Anderson. This guy is a modern auteur filmmaker, known for his deadpan sense of humor, his trademark characters, and the creative and immaculate choices in set and production design. This guy has made such recent films in this decade specifically, like Moonrise Kingdom and The Grand Budapest Hotel. Both movies I love. And with Isle of Dogs, this is his second venture into an animated film. The first one being 2009's Fantastic Mr. Fox, based on the Roald Dahl book of the same name, which everyone knows from their childhood. Yet, Isle of Dogs is an original idea, and that's what got me super hooked to see it. Starting out with the cast and their performances, I've already mentioned Koyu Rankin as Atari and Liev Schreiber as Spots, but in addition to those two, we have a lot of other people in this huge ensemble voice cast, which does include Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Bill Murray, Jeff Goldblum, Greta Gerwig, Frances McDormand, Courtney B. Vance as the narrator, Fisher Stevens, Harvey Keitel, Bob Balaban, Scarlett Johansson, Tilda Swinton, F. Murray Abraham, Frank Wood, and Yoko Ono. Mostly everybody here, I think, brings a lot of personality and characteristics to their actual characters that makes them stand out, whether they are portraying a dog or a human here. There's even a few Japanese voice actors here too, but the 2 standouts for me here are Bryan Cranston as Chief, the stray dog on the island who is very much opposed to Atari landing there and looking for his dog Spots, because Chief answers to no master. He was one of the first voices I was easily able to recognize, not just because I know who he is from Malcolm in the Middle and Breaking Bad, but also because he delivers that trademark deadpan sense of humor and dialogue that Wes Anderson is known to have his characters display within his films. And then the other standout here to me is Koyu Rankin as Atari. Now, he doesn't speak much throughout this film. Most of the time he does speak, it is in Japanese, but I thought he brought a sense of innocence, grit, and also some resilience so that he is able to find his dog Spots after all, and he's a character we are easily able to identify with, especially if you are a canine lover. So overall, with this ensemble voice cast, mostly everyone here does a superb job. The writing in this film, while simple in its premise, being about a boy looking for his dog on an island full of dogs, it actually has more depth and emotion that Wes Anderson brings in writing his own screenplay for the film. The catalyst as to what sets off the events of this movie to go in motion involve the mayor of this Japanese town, Mayor Kobayashi, banishing these dogs, of course, to an Isle of Dogs. And after he does ban the species, you know he's evil, because after all the dogs are gone, he takes in a bunch of cats. Ooh, that's an evil villain if I ever saw one. The main boy we follow throughout all this, Atari, just so happens to be the nephew to Mayor Kobayashi, defying orders and taking his little plane to this Isle of Dogs and crash landing there to find Spots. Now, the story bounces back and forth between the main storyline of Atari trying to find Spots with 5 other dogs, which includes Bryan Cranston's Chief, to back in mainland Japan, where the scientists behind the scenes are trying to figure out a cure to this dog flu, while Kobayashi is just there looking all mean, rude, petting his cat like the Godfather or Dr. Evil half of the time. With that, this movie is a straight up tribute to canine lovers everywhere. In fact, this movie's title is a play on words for I love dogs. I love dogs, I love dogs. Pretty clever, Wes Anderson, and I think he made this movie and called it that also as a little nod to his previous movies, as if you've seen any other Wes Anderson movie, you know that he's not necessarily very kind to some canine characters in them. Of course, this movie's plot is the basis for us to get into watching this film, but another huge aspect of this film, which is about 50% of it or more, is the animation. And let's get into that. Oh, wow. To say this movie is beautifully or gorgeously designed and rendered is an understatement. This movie is so immaculately animated that to show that it's only Wes Anderson's second foray into animation is just a true stunner. It already gets an A for having some art direction and some character designs that just made me get so amazed, but also with it being stop motion animation again, like Fantastic Mr. Fox. I think people take for granted how much effort and detail again that goes into making a movie like this in stop motion animation form, because even the smallest minor little points of the film are something to make note of. From the look of this dystopian Japan to the Isle of Dogs itself, so much of this movie looks creatively inspired that it makes me want to jump right into it. But of course, I wouldn't be able to, as this movie was made with a lot of miniatures and little model sets. And just the designs of the characters themselves too look so terrific. The looks of the dogs, the animation on them, the individual fur hairs on them move as the movie does go on, or even when they're staying still. And even in some moments, you get to see some ticks or fleas running through them because they're of course dirty and they're on this trash island. It looks so phenomenal. The animation doesn't stop in being so creative and inspired in its design with it being stop motion animated, as in certain instances when you see something be portrayed on a monitor or a TV screen, it's actually utilizing hand-drawn animation as well, which is such a nice thing to see because it adds to more of the art style but also blends 2 different styles of animation into one. And with this movie being so heavily reliant on its visuals, it goes into how the humor works as well. And since it is a Wes Anderson movie for the umpteenth time, it uses dry, deadpan humor, which does not work for everyone. But for those like myself who are into it, there's a lot of subtle gags and little jokes that people will be able to pick up on for sure. In fact, when I saw this film, I saw a family of 3 go in with me, which consisted of a mom, a dad, and a tween girl. And one would think at first that this wouldn't necessarily be the kind of intended audience for a Wes Anderson movie. At first I thought, oh, it's animated, like one would think that it's for kids as well. This movie is not necessarily for younger kids. Tweens and under I don't think would necessarily latch onto it, but this family of 3 in front of me were laughing their asses off throughout, even when some of the jokes weren't laugh out loud funny. It's funny I mention this movie being appropriate or not for kids as well, because I have my ticket stub here, and as you can see, if you can read that above Lake, it says G. And this movie is not rated G. No, it's PG-13. And I'm not saying that this movie isn't appropriate for kids for being PG-13. It's a little violent, a little bloody. There is some cursing in there, but maybe I'm just not giving kids today enough credit. Going back to more of the technical merits of this film, the music here has to be given a big mention. The original score was composed by Alexandre Desplat, who has worked with Wes Anderson before, even winning an Oscar for Best Original Score for The Grand Budapest Hotel, and even recently, just this year, winning the same award for his music for The Shape of Water, which also won the Best Picture Oscar this year. And what Desplat does with the score for Isle of Dogs is so vibrant, so boisterous. A lot of drums, a lot of cymbals. The same recurring themes do show up throughout the film, but I didn't mind at all. The movie began and ended with the same theme, and I got so excited. I got hyped. The pacing of this movie is pretty tight, running at about an hour and 40 minutes, which did not feel like it dragged too much or rushed in the slightest. Really, I was just so absorbed by this film that I can only pinpoint one specific con with it, and that has to do with the character voiced by Greta Gerwig. She plays a foreign exchange student from America in Japan who is against Kobayashi's ban on dogs. And I didn't really see much point to her character. She does have some prominence when she is introduced, but then she disappears for an entire section of the movie and doesn't come back until the end. And she is sort of pivotal to the way the movie ends, but it's also with her character. I felt like she was trying a little too hard to be out there as a Wes Anderson character. Not necessarily a fault of Gerwig's vocal performance. I think she is more than competent in the role. I like her as an actor, writer, and /or director, but I just felt like her character was out of place here. But all in all, I love Isle of Dogs. Wes Anderson has done it again in not just bringing another animation into his film repertoire, but also just straight up making another tremendous movie with heart. Again, this movie is a tribute to canine lovers and their canine companions, yet that doesn't mean that this film will be accessible to everyone. Just like a bunch of other Wes Anderson films, it's not going to be easy for everyone to get into, in it being too weird or out there for some. One criticism I know that some have had with this film is that whenever Japanese is spoken, half the time English subtitles aren't used. Yet that wasn't an issue for me. At times we do get the translations on screen, or we get direct translations from the character voiced by Frances McDormand. So with all of that being intentional, I thought that added to the aesthetic that this movie created. This movie is also apparently being accused of cultural appropriation, which I cannot comment on because I'm not Japanese, but what I can comment on is how much I adored the art direction and style that this movie created in utilizing Japanese culture. I think it's awesome. I would love to visit Japan one day. And I feel that Wes Anderson did have a big love and appreciation for Japanese culture while making this movie, as well as all of what he showed here in this movie coming together as a film is another feather in his already big creative hat, as no one makes movies like Wes Anderson does. This film just got its wide release this weekend, and for those of you who are big Wes Anderson fans, this is undeniably a must-see, and for those who are open to this kind of animation and style of film, it's a movie that is worth seeking out. Once again, I love Isle of Dogs. It is one of my favorite movies of 2018 thus far. I highly recommend it. My final verdict for Isle of Dogs is 4.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Isle of Dogs. Social media links in the description. Subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.